When I was younger, I spent a year in Southeast Asia. In fact, all of 1968, courtesy of the United States Marine Corps. And I learned a lot of things. Well, maybe I didn't learn anything. I became introduced to a lot of stuff. One of the things I became familiar with was the field telephone system. There were two telephones in use in the Marine Corps in 1968. One was the EE-8, which is a heavy field phone. It was powered by two batteries, two D cells. This is the way it was. It did not come out of the case. Cases were leather in the early days, canvas later on. This phone system was adopted in 1935 by the military. You'd see it all the time in World War II movies. It had a crank on the side, strap's broken, to ring the bell. It also had a genuine bell in it. This is a direct copy of a Western Electric, 302 phone. Massive handset. Straight out of Western Electric. Big. It's probably 3 inches thick. Could use it as a club, I'm sure people did. It needed to be hung up like a conventional telephone. This little switch hung it up. You inserted the phone in the box and you hung it up by placing the phone on the switch. To receive a call, you merely picked it up. To make a call, you picked it up and then cranked the crank on the side. This was a model EE-8. As I said, it came into use in 1935. Marine Corps used it until at least 1975. The other telephone was the TA-1/PT. Telephone, Model 1, push to talk. Had a coiled cord. Had a wire connector. These are just push terminals. Push them and the wire comes out. Very nice. It has a overrunning, that is a rack driving an overrunning gear, and a push-to-talk feature. It's pretty waterproof. When I push the buttons, you can see the diaphragms may be moving on the I can see them. It's nicely waterproofed. These do screw off. Exposing the inside of the phone. This is waterproof. It's got an O-ring on it. Put a little grease on here. There's a rubber diaphragm over this. And the phone is essentially waterproof. At least as waterproof as anything could be in Vietnam. Well, I've got it here. Let's look at the shape of the earpiece. This fit nicely under a helmet, which the handset on the EE-8 certainly didn't. You almost had to take your helmet off or at least loosen the chin strap up in order to put the EE-8 earpiece to your ear. That was recognized by the designers of this thing. I have two of these hooked up. Let's talk about the wire for a minute. Field wire was paired by twisted, but not physically paired. Nor were the pairs identified with a ridge or a mark. So there was no polarity to the system. Telephone purists would say they had no tip or ring method of identification, or they had no means of identifying the tip or ring. Wire's fairly interesting. It's stranded. I don't know what the gauge is. It's start afresh once. You don't want to cut this with good nippers. I'll show you why. We didn't have these in Vietnam, of course. But the number 20, the 20 gauge stripper works extremely well. 7 strands. Let me fan over them once. Four of the 7 strands are copper. Very soft, tin plated. 3 of the strands are steel, springy. The steel are for tensile strength. The copper is for conductivity. 1,000 feet of this wire, that would be 2,000 feet of wire, but one going 1,000 feet and one coming back, had a resistance of less than 50 ohms. The advantage of the TA-1, in addition to being waterproof, fitting well under the helmet, was that it did not take batteries. The disadvantage was using standard comm wire. Communication distances were limited to a 2-phone system to about 3 miles, depending on the condition of the splices. This wire, I only saw 250-foot rolls. A canvas bag looked like a donut with squared edges. Squared, square. The wire was pulled out of the center. There were also chest reels, backpack reels, and Jeep mounted reels with a lot more wire on them. The EE8 with its 2 D cells using this wire was good for like almost 15 miles. I have a second TA-1 hooked up, and using it, I'll call the first phone. By pressing this, it makes a sound. The sound comes out of this end. It's a clacking sound. And if you notice, this Maltese cross turned white. In order to use the mouthpiece, it's necessary to key the phone. Keying the phone allows you to talk and be heard at the other end. It also resets the Maltese cross. Now, why is this? Well, there are situations where you don't want to be heard. You don't want to have in your hand one of these while it was making this noise. Understanding that, the designer of the phone put a volume control. I believe it's really a shutter system that covers up some of these holes, and a dial that says loud and off. So I'll set it halfway. I'll set it back down. You heard that. It was not nearly as loud. I'll turn it the whole way off. Reset the Maltese cross. Now the phone makes no sound at all. And if I'm holding in my hand, it makes no vibration. Unlike the EE8, which weighs 15 pounds or so, this thing's very light. I'm not sure what the actual weight is. It's also equipped with a belt hook. So you can actually strap this on and carry it around. Now, you need more cord than this, but you just provide yourself excess communications wire. And you can drag it around hands-free. As issued, this white had a little bit of radium in it, so that if you were on a silent mode system, and even if you didn't notice it turning white to denote an incoming call, the fact that it stayed that way until you got a chance to look at it, sort of like a missed call indicator. The other one doesn't, well, it's not turned up the whole way. I'll turn it up. The other one's a little worse for wear, and the Maltese thing doesn't work. So that's a TA-1, a TA-1/PT. Was a very handy phone for temporary mobile operation. The TA-1 came with a carrying case. It was waterproof. It's a gasketed box. Had a hook, spring hook. It would float, and you secured it with the original case came with a lanyard with a hook at each end. The wire had nomenclature too, WD-1/TT. Now, I know the Army was using at the time WD-1A/TT. And the 1A was physically connected, either like a piece of zip cord, or it was enclosed in a nylon tube. I never physically handled 1A. Like everything else in the Marine Corps, this was probably out of date in Vietnam.